Talwar. I am 85 and I was born in Multan, which is now in Pakistan. After that, we never settled anywhere, moved from place to place. So that's where my origin is. Childhood was in Multan. I was 8 when we came to India. So I spent up to first 8 years in Multan. And we lived in the inner city, which was a walled city for protection, defense. But the outside were all Muslims. So, but my grandmother owned a lot of land outside the walled city. So she built a house there, and she built shops, factories, houses, and we moved out into one of those houses. So as a child, when I was very little, I grew up in a multi-story city house, but then we moved to a single-story, big compound and good-sized house. That was a good time, families just living together. We didn't have too much social contact because we were surrounded by all our friends and relatives were in the city, inner city. So the good part of living there was that, there was a lot of place to play. I enjoyed making toys for myself, using paper, cardboard, glue, clay, dirt outside and things like that. And I had a sister who was very caring, who took good care of me, because I had a brother who was 1.5 years younger, so he got all my mom's attention. So my older sister was very caring. I went to a school which was, they taught Urdu in the school. Well, my father was, since my grandmother was always developing properties, so my father, his career was basically, he lived with my grandmother and took care of the properties and construction and all that. And as I said, my mom was, she paid more attention to my younger brother, but I had two older sisters, an older brother who went away to college in Lahore, so I did not have too much interaction with him. And the cooking was done both by mom or my grandmother. It was all vegetarian, except once a month maybe meat was cooked, and that was by men. Only men cooked it. And it was cooked outside the kitchen, not in the kitchen. There were servants who came in and out all the time, but she had also built servants' quarters on the property. So there was help, but basically we were lived a simple life. Given all the money my grandmother had, rather simple life. Women wrote in the Devanagari script. They could not read the Persian script or the Urdu script. Men wrote in the Urdu script. My father wrote only in Urdu or Persian script. So there was I think it affected the society in some ways, that men had to have a different orientation than women because of the way things happened historically. I was more interested in crafts, and building. Of course, we came to India, and we lost everything. It was a very disruptive event in our lives. The partition of the country. The country was divided, and we narrowly escaped being killed many times as we were coming to India on the way. many places we could have been part of the massacre. In fact, in Multan itself, I was visiting Lahore, visiting relatives in Lahore, when a gang of Muslims was going around killing all the Hindus outside the city. And we were outside the city. But my grandmother had been very generous to her tenants and to the Muslims who worked for her. So I heard that about 600 Muslim men gathered in our family compound when they knew this attack was coming, and to protect us, to protect the family. And my younger brother, who was in Multan at that time, he told me that he saw these men climbing the wall with swords and weapons. But the men in the compound, they were all Muslims who protected us, who said, "You're not getting into this house, except on our dead bodies." And we escaped. My Mamaji, actually my grandmother's brother, was a major in the army, and he was in charge of transportation, military transportation. So he had sent army trucks with soldiers to bring us to India, bring us out. And so we came with and by the time the rioting started, Hindus were being killed, so we had moved into the walled city because it was not safe. And at that time, when two army trucks came with soldiers to take us to India, and we loaded our baggage on the trucks, and then people started bringing their teenage daughters. "Please take my daughter to India, to Amritsar. I know so and so. They'll come and collect her." So 16 girls came with us, and every time a girl came, some luggage had to be left on the street. So our photographs, old family photographs, and a lot of other things had to be left on the street because we were bringing these girls with us, young girls with us. Because girls were the biggest target, Muslim target. So, but there were many events I could talk about on and on, how we narrowly escaped being killed. But anyway, we came to Amritsar, first place, and stayed in some house. I don't know who it belonged to, probably rented a place. And then my Masi was in Gwalior. She had moved there before the partition, and my uncle worked for the Birlas. Gwalior had a Birla factories and plants. So they lived in Gwalior, which was a state, was not under the direct British rule, but indirect, you can say. So we came to the state of Gwalior, and Gwalior had its own school system. It was different from the rest of other parts of the country. The medium was Hindi, and I liked the school a lot. They taught us about agriculture, the school. They also had poetry competition where children recited verses from famous poets, two teams, and the last word, then you had to come up with a new verse and so on. So that was fun. I also got into gardening and so on at that time because of the school. So I think that schooling was good. There was a lot of summer homework. Moved from city to city because we were not settled anywhere. And also financially we were hard up. We didn't have much money. So my education was interrupted. After my 6th grade, I lost 1 year because we moved and I couldn't get into school on time. And then there was at that time, for people who came from Pakistan, a lot of Indians, the Hindus, there was not enough capacity in schools to accommodate them. So there were exams being held for high school equivalency. You could take an exam and go get into college. And there were a lot of private schools, most of them not very good, came up and prepared you for the exam, and you could get into high school. So that's the path I chose. So I was 14 years old when I got into college. I was a bit young for, I took one of those exams and passed and got into college. But my foundation was weak. See, I had not gone to 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade. I just studied enough to pass this. So my foundation was weak. So my first 2 years in college were tough, and I took 3 years to complete the 2-year program. Partly because I was wasn't studying enough. I was more interested in chess, going to the library, reading magazines, watching the Ramayana, reading the Ramayana, attending discourses of the Upanishads in people's homes, things like that. I mean, learning photography. I befriended a local photographer, professional photographer, who showed me how film is processed, how lighting is done and all that. And my brother had given me a box camera. And that's when I learned my English. My brother gave me a book to read, and I had a dictionary, so I tried to understand every word. And then first novel I read, it was an American novel. First page took me about half an hour to 45 minutes. Next page took half an hour. Third page took me 15 minutes because I was now picking up vocabulary. But that's how I learned my English. Anyway, so I passed after 3 years with a 3rd division, which is like a C average. So then we had moved to another city, which had a very nice college, DAV College, Dayanand Anglo-Vedic College. So that college was a prestigious college, and I knew I couldn't get into it. I was 17 then. I went and met the principal. I went and sat outside the office. I want to see the principal. And I said, I want to study here. I know I'm not qualified, but I assure you that if you admit me, I will do justice. And he admitted me. And 2 years later, I passed with the 1st division, which is like an A, and ranked number 25 among 626 students in the university. So it was pretty good. And then I didn't have money to go for further studies. But the college was hiring lab instructors, physics lab. I was interested in physics. So I taught physics laboratory for 2 years. Then my grandmother received some kind of a compensation for whatever so much she had left in Pakistan. Enough for me to go for my master's degree. And an interesting thing happened during that time. I have become a friend of somebody who came from a prosperous home. His father was a bank manager, and his mother liked me a lot because she thought I might be a good influence on him. So I used to eat at their house quite a bit. And his father told me that they gave scholarships, grants for higher education. And I said, great, I'll go to him when time comes. So I finished my bachelor's degree and I started applying, and I went to him. He said, the deadline was 3 months ago. So I went home and cried for 2 days. Anyway, so then I got this job and my grandmother got some money. So I went for my master's degree to Pilani, BITS, Birla Institute of Technology. Yeah. You've heard of it? and got my master's in physics. But at that time, during that time, I developed an interest in electronics because electronics was an exciting field. My principal told me at the school, the college principal, that he could get me, he knew people at Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics in Calcutta, that he could get me there, admitted there. And so I had a choice of going there or going to the engineering portion of the BITS, where there was a program, 2-year program in electronics, master's degree. And the government was giving scholarships. So I had to choose between nuclear physics and atomic physics and electronics, and I chose electronics because it seemed like more exciting field to me, because that was the new field, relatively new field at that time, upcoming masters, and became an assistant professor, at BITS. And then I wanted to work in the industry, so I applied for jobs, and Philips, a Dutch company, hired me in Pune. And they paid me very well. I was making about twice of what an average bachelor's degree engineer was making. So good salary, and then after a while I found that all the electronics work, good work was going on in America. All the new developments were taking place in America, and I became afraid that I was going to stagnate in working there. And so I thought, I talked to the managing director of the company, was a Dutch, and I said, what future can I look forward to here? And he said, the future here is through the way to the top here is through the production line, supervising production, and that was not what I wanted to do. So I thought I was going to stagnate, and it was not for me. And a war with Pakistan had taken place in '65. There was a recession, company expansion plans had stopped, engineers were not getting jobs, and of course we were under a corrupt Congress government, no progress taking place. And so I thought, if I go to America, go see a different part of the world and do some, get a PhD, work for a few years, come back, things will change in India by then, and then there'll be opportunities here. So I applied to Michigan, and they offered me a research assistantship and admission to a graduate program. And then people talked me out of it. They said, no, why are you leaving? You have such a nice job. In any case, then that's when the war came, and then recession came in India. So next year I said, I'm going this time. So that's how I came to America. The partition of India was a very traumatic experience for all of us, the family. Because first of all, we lost everything. We had no money, no resources, or little resources. So then I met Kay there, and I told her at that time that I have no intention of marrying an American. I'm going back to India. And I did not even apply for a green card, although those days it was easy to get a green card if you were in technology, because America had opened doors for engineers and scientists. And so I said, but I'm going to go back. Why do I need a green card? I can work after as a student visa. You could work for 18 months. You can't get any job at all if you don't have a green card. And so I applied for a green card and got it. By that time we were talking about getting married, And I told Kay that I'm not getting married until I get my green card because I don't want anybody to say that I married her to get a green card. Of course, our deal was that we were going to go live in India. I told her you can't live there, but she said, no, I can do it, I can do it. I was fully convinced, but there were no jobs when I finished my PhD. The defense industry was in a big recession. Defense, because all the advanced work was happening in the defense field at that time. Today it's in computers and other things, but that time it was in the defense industry, and the money was coming from the Defense Department, mostly from Air Force. At least work I did was funded by the Air Force. And there was a big recession, but Ford Motor Company hired me to work on automatic collision avoidance of the cars, to put a radar in front of the car so that to prevent collisions, accidents. But anyway, a year later, things opened up, and California was a good. I traveled on a business trip to California. It was so beautiful here. I said, I'm moving to, and this is where the industry was. There was a lot of industry was here. So I got a job here, so I started working. But I still had wanted to go back to India. I had no plans. In fact, after our marriage, we went to India in 1973, and I wrote to IIT Delhi that I would like to come visit the department because I was hoping that maybe I'll come back and teach at the university, at the institute. They said, come and have lunch with the faculty and give us a talk on your work. A student, and they're asking. I thought it was so nice of them. I was very moved by it. So I gave my talk, and there were no technical questions because my work was too specialized. But after the talk, there was lunch with the faculty, and two professors asked me about opportunities of how to come to America. And that got me thinking. I said, he wants to come to America, they want to come to America, and I'm coming back to India. What's the matter here? So I started thinking about it, and then I started working, and then my cousin, who got a PhD in America and went back to India, was the deputy director of Central Electronics Engineering Research Institute at a very young age. But he was not happy, so he came back here. Another classmate of mine went back to India, frustrated because there was no challenge, no work to do. Government funded the labs, but there was no requirement for anything. So they also came back. So I decided maybe I have to stay longer. But I was not ready to give up my Indian citizenship, and it was an emotionally very difficult decision. Then in 1983, so I said, okay, I have a job, the green card, I can live with green card. Why do I have to become a citizen? But in 1983, after Reagan came to power, he said that nobody can work in the defense industry unless he's a US citizen. So I had to apply for citizenship. So the company hired an attorney who filled out the citizenship form, came to my office, asked me to sign it. That was it. So I became a citizen. You could get Indian food, you could listen to Indian music, concerts, and so on. So I was okay. I was happy. I met Indian friends here, a lot of friends. I keep saying Indian because I guess, it was not easy to make friends with Americans. They don't invite you to their house. But we Indians like to get together and have parties and take our children with us. You see, Americans, you go to American house, you don't bring your children with you. You find a babysitter. Whereas among us, all the children were played together and the adults sat in another room and talked in the apartment complex. And I used to like going to see art films, like Japanese films like Kurosawa or Swedish films or French films and so on. And there were film clubs on the, when I came to Michigan, there were film clubs. So I met Kay. I said, I was going to go see a movie. I think it was Yojimbo, Akira Kurosawa's film, Japanese film. And that was the first film we saw together. But I also told her right then, I said, I don't want you to waste time on me, because she kept saying no to anybody who asked for a date. And I was worried. I said, that's not good, because I don't want you to waste your time on me, because I'm going to go back to India. She said, oh, I don't like them. She studied Indian art history and became a good Indian cook too. Although we didn't have much, couldn't buy many spices at that time. Well, we used to make butter paneer, I think. Did we make butter? Butters, not paneer.
We know paneer.
Yeah, eggs with, a lot of masalas in them. I don't know. She made chapatis that were, odd shaped. And she was very proud and came to show me. And I laughed. And she felt very bad because I laughed at her rotis. American food, because she used to cook a lot of American food. But I was not eating meat at that time. I initially ate meat when I first came, because there was hardly anything available. But then I gave up, because I had given it up in India. Even though as a child I ate it occasionally, like when the men ate, I also ate once a month or so. But at the age of 12, I stopped again. But then when I came here, I started eating for a while, and then gave up again. My sisters were married off early. They started college, but they got married off before they finished, because my grandmother was worried about getting them settled quickly, not having money. My brother, who was in college in Multan, in Lahore, he did not go back to college after we came here. He finally did business, got into business. So, of course, now all my brothers and sisters are gone. I don't have any siblings in India. I have nephews and nieces, but nobody. Well, I was worried about adjusting to American life, when I first came. But I found that people are not really any different, And America is so diverse, and you're not deprived of anything that you crave. So adjustment was not difficult. People asked you, where are you from? Oh, from India. And then they ask questions about, here nobody asks you that. Nobody asked that question in California.
Even 50 years ago.
Yeah. So California is very easy to, or maybe Michigan is now also, but at that time it was not.
Biggest achievements that you felt you had?
Well, professionally, I would say, I think I did good technical work. I have a dozen patents. Also, achievements-wise, attaining financial stability for the family. That was very important to me from the very start, because I felt responsible that I have to take good care of the family. And we have good kids, so that's about it. I wanted more children, but Kay did not want more. I love children. I absolutely, I'm very happy to have children. They were always clinging to me, and even other people's children. I was popular with them. So is she. She's also very popular with children. Unfulfilled wishes? Not really. No. I would like to have grandchildren soon, but that's it. Okay, well, excel at something, whatever you choose. Become really good at it. Be prepared for change because change is constant. The world has changed so much since I was born. It's incredible. Nobody would have imagined how things have happened. The partition of the country, political change, technological change, social change, it's just big change. So you should know that there is going to be change and welcome it, be ready to adapt. And apart from excelling in your whatever, in one thing, have a varied interests, be caring and compassionate, never ever hurt anybody's feelings. Even if somebody is mean to you, never hurt their feelings, never. You never get any good out of it. And just move on if you're a difficult person to me. So, and enjoy life. There's a lot to enjoy in life. By exploring, in addition to your whatever your career is, there are other things to explore. There's music, arts, history, I don't know, so many things, geopolitics, so many things.
I'm Priya Talwar. I'm Ashok's daughter. And something that I've always really appreciated about my dad is his intellect. I really appreciate how much he loves learning and how kind of rigorous and studious he is about it. Not just learning, but learning things the correct way. Like if he's studying about history or if he's studying about the news, he makes sure he reads all the perspectives and he reads all sides of the story before he makes up an opinion. And oftentimes he still doesn't really have an opinion because, he realizes that it's a complicated situation. And I feel like that's influenced me a lot. I see that a lot in myself. I can always trust him to be a critical thinker. And I really like to ask him about things that are happening because I know that he'll have an informed view on them. He's extremely well read. His interests are all over the place, so he's an academic and an engineer and made good money, but also is really interested in history and culture and art and music. And the other thing, like my mom said, that he retired early, so I was always chatting. I just had the most fun chatting with him as a teenager in his room. We would just talk about all kinds of things like Hinduism, spirituality, philosophy, history, and I learned a lot during that time, and also about how to think. And another quality that I really like about my dad is that he's been a really good example of compassion. So he doesn't have typical Western male characteristics of he's very compassionate towards animals, for example. He always chose to be a vegetarian and tries to make sure he's making ethical choices wherever he goes. Honesty is really important to him. Doing the right thing and not harming others is always important to him. I just find him a fascinating person and also really compassionate.